Reports the Dusan Vlhahovic to Arsenal is off this morning from the likes of Damasio, claiming that Fiorentina will not sell him this January. We're going to delve into that and much, much more on the Done Deal show with Dean Jones this morning. That may not be completely true. We're also going to take a look at Anthony Martial's exit, Mo Salah's new contract, Jude Bowen, and a number of other potential transfers that could take place in the next 10 to 14 days. Make sure you hit that like and that share button. This is the Done Deal show. Let's go. Morning, Dean. How are you, mate?
Very good, mate. Very good. Yeah, deep into the transfer window now. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? But yeah, there is stuff happening.
There is. Let me straight away look at this from Sharek. I know Sharek likes you here. He says the lean, mean tier 1 machine is what it's called you this morning. You don't scatter my dreams.
Oh man.
Yeah, it is an interesting window so far. It isn't as busy as certain clubs almost promised their managers it would be, if that makes sense. You know, Villa have done a bit. Newcastle, I thought they've done more. Spurs, I mean, they're just being Spursy, aren't they? They're just being Spursy from a fan's point of view. That was meant to happen. And Chelsea ain't done anything. United are kind of dithering. So, yeah, I mean, the bigger story, and again, this morning it trends in a different direction. Damasio has said that Fiorentina have essentially told him that they will not allow Vlhahovic to go. Kind of, I'm not going to say flies in the face of all the other news that's circulated in the last 2 weeks about him. But it does feel kind of interesting that I don't really understand why it matters to Fiorentina, other than them trying to make Champions League football. But like, what's the latest as far as you're aware with Arsenal's pursuit of this brilliant striker?
It was always a tough get, and they knew that from the off. And it was always expected that there was much more chance of Vlhahovic leaving at the end of the season than leaving now. But Arsenal have been trying their luck, basically, because it's not very often you get an opportunity to go bidding for a player like this with at least a 25% chance that you can make a transfer go ahead. I think it's Vlhahovic more that doesn't want this move to happen right now than Fiorentina. Fiorentina can get a lot of money for him in this window. That was always what was told. You're going to be paying a premium. It's going to be 75, 80 million euros. Whereas at the end of the season, it's going to be back down towards 50 to 60 million. And there'll also be more clubs bidding at that point. Vlhahovic is great. He scored again last night for Fiorentina as they battered Genoa. I still don't know that Arsenal was particularly the best fit for him personally. I think he's not sure about that either. He wants to win the Golden Boot, wants to be top goal scorer in Serie A this season. So he's always really had most of his focus, to be honest, on staying. So I'm not surprised, to be honest, that he don't make this transfer this window, but I don't think it's because primarily that Fiorentina don't want him to go, because at the right price, I still think they would sell.
Yeah, that was the part of when I read what Damasio said, and I'm not challenging his credibility. I'm sure that's what he's been told. But as we know, Inter Milan told Fabrizio in the summer, categorically impossible that they would let Lukaku go. So clubs often, you must have had this. I know you've had this happen to you with the transfer deal that must not be named, where you're told something by a club and then they change their mind and it kind of creates a problem. But what do Arsenal do now, in your view? Because they clearly need a striker. Is there anybody else that they're going to now look at, whether it's Isak, whether it's Calvert-Lewin? Are they going to go in a different direction or just wait until the summer?
Yeah, I can't see it happening in this window now, to be honest. Although that depends. If they could somehow find someone to take Aubameyang, then that would give them another opportunity to make something happen. The fact that Everton are in a mess right now means that Calvert-Lewin is definitely a focus for them. It's somebody they'd love to get. They don't think it's possible halfway through a season, but let's see what they do in terms of getting the next manager, because I think that'll have a big say in what Calvert-Lewin does next. But yeah, Isak is obviously as well, they have an eye on. We'll have to see. I think Arsenal will focus on getting a midfielder and then see what they can do on the back of this in the final week or so of the window. I mean, you mentioned at the start there that a lot of clubs not as busy as they were planning to be or hoping to be. We don't normally see that bit much business in the first 2 weeks anyway. So actually, compared to what we normally see, it hasn't been too bad. It's been pretty busy. Newcastle, they have made 2 signings of good quality, and their aim for the window is to sign 4 or 5. So they're almost 50%
about halfway through.
Yeah, so they're actually they're kind of on point to where they intended to be at this point. So I think it's a pretty normal window in that sense. What is weird is that clubs are, making signings that I didn't necessarily think they needed. For example, Aston Villa signing players that come out the blue. They needed a DM, and they're signing Coutinho and Luca Digne. So yeah, it's been a strange one, but for Arsenal, there'll be headlines, no doubt about it, in the next 2 weeks, because they are a club that are in the market to try and give Arteta the squad that he wants for the last few months of the season.
Yeah, Arsenal, obviously, you mentioned that the midfield, Arthur Melo, that they were looking at, but it sounds as though after talks that they can't come to an agreement with the with Juve. I mean, I've read numerous things from the players. The player and Arsenal were in absolute agreement, but it was more Juve and Arsenal. Like, where are they looking now in relation to a midfield option? Will they go back in for Arthur Melo and try and work on that deal, or are there some other kind of strokes in the fire?
Yeah, I mean, Arthur was always a tough one. I think Allegri doesn't really see him as a big part of his plan going forward. And, at the start of the window, they were looking to offload him as well as Aaron Ramsey. And then they were in 2 minds about whether to or not. And then Arsenal prefer a loan right now. And that doesn't really suit Juve to just let a player like that on loan. His playing style doesn't really suit Allegri. At Arsenal, he'd be a really, really good fit, actually. So from an Arsenal point of view, I think it's a shame that it's not looking good. I wouldn't say all hope is lost, but of course they'll be looking at other options right now. I can't really give you any names, but they're still looking to fill that position. And to be honest, I do think they will, because I think it's that important to Arteta, and he's kind of been promised that he will be given what he wants there.
Yeah, it's interesting. A few people in the comments are saying that David Ornstein just tweeted that the Vlhahovic medical's in a few days' time. That's not the real David Ornstein. Just you've been done by a fake account, people. Like that, he definitely hasn't tweeted that. I did go and check. I didn't want to say that it was a fake account. Every now I always like those ones where someone creates an account that looks like the real one, and they put out. And if you actually read the story, it's actually so obscure. It's like he's going to be doing his medical and parachuted in at halftime at the weekend, and people they ignore the stupid part in the sentence, but they focus on the medical bit.
Yeah.
Look, I think for me, it's Arsenal's window is really interesting in here. I mean, Fabrizio's tweeted about it this morning, saying Arthur Melo will only leave Juve in a case where they find a replacement in the next few days. Yeah. And again, that all seems fairly kind of normal. I still think there's more of a Juve wanting there to be an obligation to buy at the end of that. That seems to be the thing with these loan deals now. Clubs, they want to know that at the end of it, the player's gone. And it's very reminiscent of Anthony Martial's transfer. It's almost, Man United want all the salary paid. They want an obligation to buy. They want it to be done, dusted, and finished, even though it's only a loan in the first instance. And these seem to be really difficult to get done at the moment. Loads seem to kind of fall down because of that obligation to buy element, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's true. They do obviously like that, especially if it's a player that isn't fitting in with the current manager, and there's no plans for that manager to be leaving. And for Arthur, he's found himself surplus to requirements this season. Weston McKennie has done a good job of establishing himself and proving to Allegri that he can step up and really be a force in Serie A. And Juve they've had obviously some bad spells in this season. They've also had 2 very good spells, which has put them back into Champions League contention for this season. And there are a lot of issues at Juve at the moment. They got DYBALA's on-off contract situation that they're trying to sort out. Chiesa's out injured at the moment. They got the situation with Morata, whereby there's potential of an offer from Barcelona for him, and Juve would then have to sort out that.
Oh, we lost you there, Dean. You've gone on your mic's gone on to mute by itself, which is very strange.
They did that earlier. I don't know what's going on.
Back now.
So Juve have had a variety of things to consider, and away from Arthur in terms of big names with their futures in doubt. So it's just one of sort of 5 issues they're trying to compete with right now. Arsenal obviously trying to take advantage of that, but let's see if Juve can find that person that would fill his spot in the squad.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very intriguing indeed to see what they do. You mentioned DYBALA there. And he's a player that's kind of felt like he's been trying to get away, or his exit has been on the agenda sort of 3-4 windows on the bounce now. Are there any English clubs that are looking to potentially bring him in?
Yeah, Tottenham would have a look at him. There's no doubt about that. I can't see it happening. I've got a loose connection on my. It's a loose connection on my connect. Oh, let me just push it in. Sorry,
no problem.
Try and sit very still because for some reason it's going. It's not the Wi-Fi. It's the mic going in and out. It's doing the same with my plug right now. But anyway, what was I talking about? Who were we talking about?
DYBALA, Tottenham. I finally forgot as well. I was thinking more about your loose connections. Oh, bless him. What we're talking about? Yeah, we're talking transfers on the internet live. Yes, DYBALA, Tottenham.
Yeah, sorry about. So yeah, Tottenham and DYBALA is one to look out for, because obviously there's obvious links there with Paratici and Conte, and DYBALA is open to the idea of coming to the Premier League. So I think it's one that. I wouldn't say it's likely, but if Juve are going to play silly games with him, then he's not going to have it forever. He scored a goal at the weekend, and he didn't, the way he looked up at the stands was one in a way like, what more do you want from me? Like, I'm either yours or I'm not. So I think it's an interesting situation. I'm amazed that Juve put themselves in this situation, but there you go.
No, I hear you on that. I do. It's so many players' contracts running down. I don't remember a time like it, if that makes sense. There's so many that in the next 18 months or a year or so run out. It's strange indeed. There's a comment here. I love these. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? It's a call out to me. I have to respond to these when I see them. It says, you see, Terry, he will go to Arsenal. You're saying I said that Vlhahovic would go to Arsenal. Again, what I love about football fans, I love the polarization. I suppose that's what gives me a business. What I said is Arsenal, I think fans should be proud of their very ballsy attempt. I also said, don't write it off. I said all the talk of him and his agent ignoring Arsenal and having no interest and not considering it was the BS. I said there was a chance that it could happen. Arsenal have tried, and it looks like right now it isn't. That's very different from me standing there going 100%. I guarantee you it's going to be a completed deal. So again, Sosa, good try. But you got to remember, this is what I like about football fans is you had a lot of people like categorically the deal ain't happening, but very much from the stance of it was a non-starter. And I don't necessarily think it was a complete non-starter. I do think the camp have potentially thought about it and listened and just gone. And what was actually said at the beginning, some of the first stories that people like yourself put out was that they're going to go big. They're going to make this big offer, but the player is still likely to wait until the summer because to see who else comes back in for him. But, Arsenal have made that mark now and, that might pay dividends for him in the summer. They've already started the work. Depends who actually, he might think, oh, Juve are definitely going to come in for me in the summer. They might not. And Arsenal have already done a lot of groundwork. So we'll see. But yeah, I definitely didn't say that he would definitely go Sosa. But cheers, bro. Thanks very much for that.
I see somebody mentioning TIELEMANS, by the way. And that is definitely one that Arsenal have got on their radar. It's not going to happen right now because Leicester won't do that right now. But TIELEMANS in the summer, definitely somebody that Arsenal are looking at.
Well, that'd be an interesting signing. I mean, they do need to improve that midfield because technically he's not bad, but Granit Xhaka he's a liability, isn't really and truly. He's an absolute liability. He really is. And interestingly, he said liability. He helped.
Arteta loves him.
Arteta does love him, and also like Emery loved him, and Wenger loved him. So maybe it's.
Sometimes there are things that we can't see, you know, from the outside, that, you know, what they give to that team or that group of players, whether it's leadership, whether it's experience, whether it's just aggression. I don't know. Like there's just something that Xhaka has that his managers tend to love. So, you know, it's not like Arsenal haven't had opportunities to make their excuses and offload him. There's certainly been plenty of those chances, but they've hung on to him. So there's clearly something about that guy that the people around him really like.
Yeah, definitely. So it'll be interesting with Tielemans where he will come in and play if they stick with two in the midfield. They go to a 3-man midfield. The 3-man midfield will be interesting because that takes Odegaard out of the team, or Smith. Yeah, I mean, but options, I suppose, isn't it? It's about being able to change it up and having that strength in depth, which Arsenal we know Arsenal don't have strength in depth. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got their game called off or applied for it. I'm not even digging at Arsenal. I find it hilarious. Do you know what I love about what they did? Exploiting the rule is they did it, and then the very next day they loaned another player out. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. It's an absolute thing of beauty that Arsenal did. I've got a thing about that in life. There's a stupid rule that you can do that's kind of annoys people, but you're not doing anything wrong. I say do
Exploit it. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just do it. Do you know what I mean? It's no different to someone who owns their own business, you know, taking their family out for a dinner and claiming it as a business expense. As long as it's legal, do it. Don't give that money to Boris. Don't give it to Boris. Do you know what I mean?
No.
But I do pay my taxes, by the way, people. I do pay my taxes. Someone actually reported me for that not long ago, you know. Someone did a thing, and it was like, well, it's a limited company. Like Snack Media take care of all of that. It's all fine. Like, it's
you get for dodgy lunches on the terrace, are
you? Yeah.
You and Neats.
I have three business meetings a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. How that works,
You're just show planning, aren't you? It is business lunches.
I know. In Morrison's. That's where as well. I can get a bit of shopping in while I'm there. Yeah. No, absolutely. Let's have a look at there's a few things I want to viewers. If there's any kind of transfer stories that you want any information on, let us know in the live comment section. I want to talk Man United. We're going to talk Liverpool a little bit later. But on Tottenham, we kind of mentioned there with DYBALA. We know that they've been looking at Traore. Has there been any progression in the last 7 days on that?
With Tottenham, Tottenham had to wait because Wolves made it clear that they wanted to get in a replacement before Traore would be allowed to go anywhere. So Spurs have had to be patient on that. It looks like things will move forward this week with Traore. I do expect him to join Tottenham. It's just a case of agreeing on the fee. It's a player that they have been looking at for a long time. It's obviously Espirito Santo was the first guy that wanted him in there. Didn't happen at that point, but finally it looks like Tottenham are getting some opportunity to negotiate over this fee. And to be fair, it's probably at half the price they would have paid him for him in the summer. So from a Daniel Levy point of view, that's very good news. In terms of a honestly, I'm going to have to throw my laptop out the window in a minute. This mad mute thing. Anyway, in terms of a centre-back, it's not looking likely. What I was told just before the weekend was that Tottenham, you know, because they can't narrow in on exactly who they would want right now, it's not that much of a priority that they want to panic. It's expected that they'll probably put that off until the summer now. So in that sense, I think some Tottenham fans will probably be annoyed about that, but it's probably sensible if they can't get the right fit.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people understand that. I mean, Traore is such an interesting signing for me because he's got the physicality, he's got the speed, he's got that a bit on the counter. He's absolutely deadly. So when he plays against the teams that are aggressive, I suppose that fits the Conte model, though, doesn't it? Like they tend to want to absorb and counter. He could be deadly for him on that right hand side. Because he's not going to be any worse than Emerson Royale. I mean, he is an absolute cream puff. I thought AWB was bad technically. Like Emerson Royale. Sometimes I look at these players and think you are League One level, legitimately.
He wasn't like this before he went there, though. I had good reports of him, and even people now that see him playing, they're like, this isn't really what I expected from him, to be honest. So
Really,
yeah.
Again, interesting how it happens. I mean, you expect Traore in this next week. You'd be surprised if it didn't happen. It feels like it's pretty much getting towards being complete.
Yeah. From what I'm hearing, like it probably will head that way right now. I'm not going to say it. Unfortunately, it's not close enough to be a done deal. But in terms of what Spurs have done so far, it's the closest they've come to one. Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, they want those players in because I think a lot of Spurs fans had this thought and this feeling throughout the course of from the appointment of Antonio Conte that we need a decent window, and actually that with this manager in a decent window, 2 or 3 good to very good players in. And I think Spurs fans feel confident of a top 4 finish. I mean, their league form versus their cup form is so interesting. In the league, they've just been solid, winning games. In all the cup competitions, they've been a little sketchy, but I suppose that kind of mirrors a lot of Antonio Conte's career, really. He doesn't seem to be the best in knockout competitions, but in the league, he's just formidable, absolutely formidable.
It's true, yeah, that's a good point. He doesn't, he's not a man that loves cup competitions, doesn't like being in Europe, just likes doing his business domestically in the league. But there's still a long way to go for Tottenham, obviously, on that front as well. So let's see if they can bring in 1 or 2 just to help shape their second half of the season. Also see what they do end up doing with the likes of Dele Alli. Do they let them go? Do they? I think they'll probably wait to the last week of the window before we'll see that anyway. It's always been the case, but it might be that they can shake up the squad a little bit in those final few days, which is just how Daniel Levy prefers it.
Yeah, and do you get a sense of Dele Alli staying in the Premier League, or do you think he'll go? Because obviously there was a lot of talk last year about it being Paris Saint-Germain, of course, the Poch connections. Is that on, or do you think he'll move to a Premier League club if he leaves?
The PSG thing isn't on anymore, but he's definitely got his eyes open to the prospect of moving abroad. I think, to be honest, it would probably be good for him to get away from England for the second half of the season and refocus and take on board a different way of living, a different way of coaching, have to prove himself in a different league, and start from scratch basically. Because the problem is he's out at Tottenham is we all know what Dele Alli is capable of. We know how good he's been for Tottenham at times. And so I think that there's probably a belief from him that it's just going to come back, and it hasn't just come back. And he's now at the point of his career where he really needs to recapture that form. It's a strange one, and if you were MK Dons, you would be wondering what earth's going on, because they've got a sell-on clause involved in Dele Alli, and it wasn't long ago he was being talked about as a £100 million footballer, and they'd have been rubbing their hands together. And now I'm not sure if he's a £20 million footballer. It's certainly not the same level as he was,
Yeah, it's the drop off in Dele Alli has been, I have to be honest, it's been phenomenal to a point of it's actually shocking in the sense of it's one of those transfers that I want to understand why. I'm desperate to understand what it is, and whether it was, he believed his own hype, he believed that he was better than he is, he stopped training hard. It can't have just been it was 3 or 4 seasons where he was excellent. It can't have been you have these 1-season wonders every now and then, you get like a Francis Jeffers who, oh, wow, he looks really promising, and then just dies off straight away. Makeda's, really good start to their career, fade. Januzaj, this guy got to 50 goals in the Premier League faster than Frank Lampard. And then it fell away.
Do you know what? I think the part of the problem with Dele is he finds it so easy. Like, he's naturally such a good footballer from, the moment he came through at MK Dons at like 16 or whatever. And I remember on his debut at MK Dons, like his second touch was a back heel. And from the moment he stepped into professional football, he was balling basically, and he became a big part of that team as a kid. And a couple of years later, he's getting a big transfer, and he goes into the under-21s. He can play at that level. He proves it. Goes into Tottenham, steps up his level. Goes into England, steps up his level. And so whatever challenge he was given, he always stepped up. And it's only since he's kind of plateaued at Tottenham, I guess, is when he's just not had that challenge of rising to a new level. So it might be that he needs that new club just to give him that impetus to prove himself all over again. I think it would be good for him.
Yeah, no, it does. It's that old adage of, you know, a change is as good as a rest, and I think that's very much what he needs. And it's interesting you say that he finds it too easy, because I have a real kind of thing in football about hard work. Hard work beats talent. And we all kind of know that every day of the week. And it does. And I'm not saying he hasn't worked hard. Again, that's probably maybe oversimplifying it. But there's almost that element of, but my talent will see me through. And I always remember I watched a great documentary about the class of 92. And it was very well done by MUTV. It was quite raw. And it interviewed nearly every person that was in that academy. And you'd see, obviously, they interviewed the Beckhams and the Scholeses and the Nevilles that didn't just make it, they made it to such a level in football. And then you saw him interviewing the kind of the faces you recognize as a United fan from the photos, but what they're doing now. And some are coaching football, one's a bricklayer, one's a cab driver, whatever else. And there's this one lad whose name now escapes me. And he was brought up from London, a bit like Beckham, to be part of this team. And he was the guy. He was the one that the local media were like, this kid could be a superstar for Man United. He was the best kid in the academy. He was the star name. But he said that when training finished at the time when it was at the Cliff, he said that he would finish, and Scholes would stay back and work on his passing with Beckham. Neville would just carry on working because he wanted to get better. Giggs was doing X, Y, and Z, and he went, and me and these four other guys, and they panned the camera to the guys, again, not working in football, didn't have careers. We would leave because we were on the most money at the academy. We'd go down to the Arndale Centre and talk to girls all afternoon. And it was almost a case of like, we get a bit of feedback from your end.
Yeah, it went funny on your end too for me. I think we're just having a mare today. I think someone's playing with us.
There we go. Yeah, and he just said that, and we went down to the Arndale Centre to chat to girls, and they stopped. They were training, and they were working hard in training, but they weren't putting in. They were the most talented. They found it easier, and do you get where I'm coming from? It just kind of, and I feel like Dele Alli has fallen into that trap of, I've made it, I'm here, and he stopped trying to. You hear that noise as well?
Yeah, I can hear it. Yeah.
It's a very strange noise. It does sound like a Hoover. It sounds like a Hoover. I'm not too sure what that is.
No, sorry.
But
I'm not sure either.
That's Dele Alli. Chelsea.
Yeah.
Chelsea are an interesting one this month. They were looking at Lucadinha. That isn't happening. The fans are desperate for fullbacks. They're kind of looking at a lot of their current players that are out on loan. DEST is another one they mentioned. Like, what's the latest with Chelsea Football Club?
I mean, it's a bizarre one, isn't it? The Chelsea are in a situation where they spent the last 2 weeks trying to sign one of their own players. They're trying to bring Emerson back. And I can't believe that we're in a situation with Chelsea whereby it's a club that have done such good business in recent years and been so switched on to potential problems cropping up. And here we are. Spent 2 weeks trying to sign Emerson, who's their own player, and they're trying to pay someone compensation to bring him back. Now he's got COVID, so he's not gettable for the next week. So let's see whether they do that. Obviously, they've looked into Serginho Dest. Hasn't gone, that far that it's getting close, but they're certainly interested in him. The problem with Dest is he's desperate to prove himself at Barcelona and stay. So that's an issue that Chelsea have got to contend with. They'll probably have to start looking at some other new options soon. I see that Kennedy's just been now put into the first team squad. The idea when he first came back was he was just looking for a new loan club, but maybe they'll get to the point where Kennedy has to be considered soon at this rate. Very strange at this for Chelsea. I think Tuchel will be desperate that they give him the backing he needs. After coming in a year ago and making the impact that he made, it's so important that Chelsea continue to give the guy what he wants, because when he doesn't want a player, he makes it clear. Like they say, do you want us to go in for Lucadinha? And he's like, no, I don't. That is not what I see for the future of this club. For whatever reason, he didn't want him to sign. Maybe it's that he's heard the same things that I've heard, that Lucadinha wasn't a great person to have in the dressing room sometimes at Everton. I know that Rafa's getting a lot of stick for parting ways with him, but he wasn't the only person that had an issue with Digne's attitude and application. Tuchel didn't want him at Chelsea, so he knows what he wants from signings. He knows the level that those players have to be at in terms of focus and application, and Chelsea now needs to match that, because yeah, they're in a little bit of trouble right now. You know, it's not only are they so far cut adrift in the title race, but they've got to make sure that they can keep up now in the other competitions that they're in, because they've still got the opportunity for this to be a fantastic season, but there's got to be a big pickup here.
Yeah, of course, and losing the fullbacks the way they did is awful for them. It just really is, and it's so strange that it isn't. It isn't. I understand not wanting to go out there and break the bank for a top class fullback when Reece James is going to be back in a few weeks, and most players now recover from knee ligament injuries because the medicine and stuff is, the medicine and surgeries are so good now. At the same time, it's an element of, you've got such deep pockets, generally speaking. This just feels a little bit weird to me, if that makes sense, because it could, you might already feel like you're at the title race, but it could cost you the Champions League. Just not, Chelsea have just not been as good without those fullbacks. They're also talking to the young lad that's at Southampton as well, if I'm not mistaken, about bringing him back, or what he's featured. Well, Southampton want to buy him, but Chelsea are kind of deliberating whether or not they want to keep him or not.
Yeah, BROJA is somebody that, he's having such a good season at Southampton. There are people at Chelsea that are thinking, well, no, don't sell him. Actually, bring him back, because at the moment we need a guy that's full of confidence and can score us goals. And there's definitely an argument to be had that he's in better form than Lukaku right now. So there's very much a split at Chelsea as to what to do there. They don't really want to loan him out again. They've got to start making decision on what happens with this guy. I think they'll probably give him a chance in the summer. There's not really much sense in them striking a deal on a permanent transfer for him in this window. Obviously, Southampton are trying to convince them otherwise. They're trying to put in clauses there that would mean that Chelsea have the buyback and all the rest of it that we've seen them have with various other players. But yeah, it is an interesting one, because I do see the argument right now that Chelsea could actually do with him.
Yeah, I mean, Lukaku's form is just, it's interesting, really, because I don't watch Italian football with any real kind of like regularity. And I was told by so many people, he's like night and day to what he was at Man United. He's touch, he's build up play, attitude, everything. And all I see is the same player. It can be a deadly finisher, but I
don't think he's the same. I don't think he's the same. I'd have to, like, if you think back, like you could say that now watching him, but if you look back on when he first came into Chelsea, when he had his confidence and what he was like for those games when he was scoring goals, I think he did look like a different player. And I watched a lot of him at Inter last season. A lot of the reason he was successful was because of Lautaro Martinez. They had a really good combination. Conte had a team that was together. He had a pattern of play and a system that would present Lukaku with perfect opportunities to score. And obviously, the more goals you score, the more confident you are. And you just go from there. And Lukaku was like that when he came in at the start of the season. And now he's lost that confidence, and you see him presented with chances now. Sometimes he's not even shooting at times when he should be shooting. He's trying to lay it on a plate for other players. And, someone like Lukaku doesn't typically do that. He likes to bury them himself, and he'll believe that he can do it. He's staying at Chelsea right now because he wants to prove to everyone that he is in the top 5 strikers in the world. That's his honest belief right now. He doesn't think that there's many better than him, if any. So it's time for him to really step up and show that. I've got to admit, I wouldn't be totally surprised if this again ended disappointingly for him. I can definitely see a situation opening up where, if Chelsea start to realise that Erling Haaland's available, they go for him, and Lukaku goes elsewhere. It wouldn't completely surprise me. I'm not saying that that's happening right now. It's not. But Chelsea and Roman Abramovich love Erling Haaland. And if he doesn't go to Real Madrid, which is his top choice, I think Chelsea will be right in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. I really wouldn't. And I think it's with Lukaku, I get where you're coming from. I think when Lukaku's confident, when he's happy, when he's in form, he is deadly. But I just get the overall I just get that. I just get those. I just get the same vibe from him. How he was in his second season at Manchester United, just his body language, the way he moves. I wouldn't be surprised if in six months you see sort of, or maybe a bit less than that, you'll see United, ask Chelsea fans sort of go, look, put weight on again. I just feel like he needs to feel loved, and for whatever reason, I just don't feel like he feels it. And I know they've said that all their problems are gone, but when you kind of look at something, you're like, I don't believe you. I believe you're going to tell everybody that the problem's all been brushed under the carpet, but we'll see what happens. So I'm not surprised you say the thing about Haaland there. If he becomes available, they may look to move as well. But yeah, certainly interesting goings on at Chelsea. It's crazy the difference in fan mood as well. That's what I focus on, is what fans are saying and doing. And I've seen Tuchel out spaces. I've seen, like, they were literally in the summer, they were celebrating Marina as the greatest DOF in the world. Now it's back to, she is absolutely shocking. Like, the flip-flop from fans is amazing to me to see.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea fans never happy, are they? It's just seems to be the way. And I remember in the summer when they were panicking about not signing anybody, and I get it. Like, you want to make sure that you're competing at the highest level, and it looked like Chelsea were going to be competing at the highest level this season. And I thought we were in for a brilliant title race, to be honest. But Man City are too good. They're just too good, and they've got a system that is just blowing everybody away. And we're in a situation where until Pep Guardiola leaves Man City, I think they're dominating, and that's it. We've got to accept it, because nobody can get close to them for long enough to put up a fight. Look, I'm certainly not going to question Marina. She's time and time again proved that she's probably the best person at her job in the world. So while it might not look that she's doing good business, and I've talked about a few of the concerns on here, and we know about the centre-back situation and all the contracts that are expiring, no one will be more angry and upset about the way this is opening up than her. So I'm sure she'll fix it, because she's so driven, and she is very good at what she does.
She's very good at what she does, there's no doubt. I mean, built this team that's on its way to challenging for titles, to won a Champions League. I do think for fans, it's understanding that it's not always as easy as just everybody wants to play for us. It's one of the things about the transfer window I dislike is the PR element of the game now, in terms of, oh no, no official bids have happened, no official talks have taken place. I'm friends with quite a few intermediaries. I messaged them and they're like, yeah, it's just there's no official talks because they're going through us, or they're going for a separate agent, or they bring in like a moderator, but then they get to deny there's really talks going on. I dislike it from a point of view of, just tell us that you're having talks. But fans are the ones that can't handle the rejection part. So I get why clubs do it, because they don't want what Chelsea have got right now, where there's this huge fire, because Chelsea fans can't understand why they're not spending £100 million on 2 new fullbacks to cover the absence of guys for 6 to 5
exactly,
6 weeks to 5 months. And so I do kind of get it. There does need to be an element of patience with people at times. It's because you'll create a different problem. You go and sign, just say they went out and they got LUKAKU in, and they went out and they bought Lamptey back. Just throwing examples out there. What happens at the beginning of next season when all 4 want to play, and then you create disharmony in the dressing room and a problem in the dressing room, which is actually harder to fix, because they're going to come in on Chelsea money. Lots of clubs aren't going to be able to afford to buy and pay that. It's like, honestly, I think Chelsea fans need to relax a little bit and understand that Chelsea Football Club do know what they're doing. In the last 20 years, they are the most successful team in England in terms of trophies. I do find it weird. Like, maybe I'm just being precious because my clubs run like crap. And I see the way Chelsea run, I'd die for my club to run as well as they are, to be winning what they're winning, and yet they're still not happy. It's a madness to me. Like, personally, It's a madness. It really, really is. Speaking of Man United, though, Martial, power struggles, Lingard looking to move on. There's talks of lots of different players in the Zacharias and HAIDARA deal and everything else. Like, what's the latest in terms of exits at Man United, Dean?
I think Martial's the one that has got all the focus on him, and it's for good reason. He was always angling for a move in this window, and he was always worried that he was going to be priced out of that move, and that's exactly what's happening right now. He had an offer on the table from Sevilla, which he was very interested in. The problem was that Sevilla are only willing to pay half the amount he earns at Man United right now.
Wow.
And from what I'm told, you know, when that offer came in, Man United said, you know, made it pretty clear that they wouldn't be making up that money. So Martial's left in a situation there whereby, okay, so you're telling me if I leave, then I've got to go and join Sevilla and I'm earning half the money I am now. Okay, well, I'll leave it. And that's the thing. Like, from Man United's point of view, they're like, well, why should we pay you the same amount of money as they're paying you? You're going to be playing for them. You're not going to be playing for us. But at least if you're here, we've got that option to pick you if we need you. We paid a lot of money for you initially. We spent a lot of you on wages throughout your time here. Haven't really got the output from you that we should have over this period of time. You know, that's for mixed reasons. That's not all Martial's fault at all. But from a business point of view, it doesn't really make sense to Man United to make up money to Sevilla. So I think that deal's pretty much gone now because Sevilla can't pay him obviously the same that Man United are paying him. If he's going to go, then somebody's got to take him off their hands and pay the majority of his wages. I think Juventus could be an interesting one if they were to look down that path, because obviously the Chiesa injury has meant that they've got to consider what they do in that forward position. And you know, it might be like you say, a loan to a permanent or something like that. Might be something that they can look at, or even a short termer in other ways. But Martial's desperate for something to happen, and he's very concerned that it won't. I know he's obviously had his own say on social media and stuff about refusing to play and stuff like that, and that's fine. But I don't think it can be contested that he wants to leave Man United, and not necessarily because he doesn't like the club. He just needs to play football again. He just needs a new lease of life. So let's see if he can find it. And then obviously, like, there's Jesse Lingard as well, and Jesse's been pretty willing to see out the season at Man United, so as it will open his options further as to what he can do next year. As a free agent, he could pretty much go to any country he likes, which he's certainly open to. I think he likes the idea of, you know, if there are foreign clubs interested in signing him, he would do that. He knows that Newcastle would like to sign him right now. Not sure he sees that many positives to come from joining Newcastle right now. West Ham obviously would too. And there are certainly positives to be had there. I think, again, we'll see in the last week of the window when there's more desperate stakes, when a big club suffers either an injury to a star player or suddenly loses one of their key players and they need someone to come in and fill a hole. Maybe that's when Jesse Lingard does push for a move, because, you know, there's lots that will happen in the next 2 weeks that will change the shape of certain squads in the Premier League and beyond.
Yeah.
And it's that domino effect that I think will be when we see players like Lingard start to angle for their move.
Yeah, look, if I was Lingard, unless he gets his dream move now, wait until the summer. And as you say, open it up. You'll get paid more money as well because no one's paying any kind of fee for you and everything else. Just on back to Martial very briefly. See, there's a controversy over the weekend about him refusing to travel or to be part of the squad. Have you heard anything about that at all? Is that just a case of a bit of a miscommunication, or, you know, or do you feel like he's being a bit of a cow son? Like, what's your take or understanding from what you've heard?
Yeah, I tried to get it stood up by the person that normally keeps me well informed on Martial, and they were pretty cagey about the whole thing and just said, "Oh, it's not what it's made out to be," basically, and wouldn't go into it any further. So I haven't got any like clear story on it. I think that at the end of this month, that story will probably come out, and we'll get it. But for now, I think that the people around Martial are trying to keep their heads down. They don't want to cause any more fuss. They don't want any more negative headlines around him, because obviously that affects his chances of a transfer too, because clubs start to view him as a negative character, somebody that might not positively influence their team. Same problem really that Arsenal have got right now with Aubameyang. Like, who on earth's going to sign Aubameyang after the year he's had, not even the month he's had? So yeah, there's situations like that when you're speaking to people where you just have to accept that they don't want to talk about it.
No, I get that. It's an interest. Even if he hasn't done it, sometimes it's like, you know, keeping your powder dry is so important in life. I remember when I first started off in the corporate world, and it's crazy to think how much the world's changed since then. But I remember being in a meeting, and there's just some real senior heads in there, and they were talking about the grievance process, how you raise grievances. And I always got told by someone who's still very senior at a different bank now. They said, yeah, if you can help it, never raise a formal grievance. And I was like, why? Said, if someone's like bullying you, they went, try and handle it like off the record. I went, why? They said, because it will damage your career. Because even if you're right, other people will look at you as someone that could be a problem in their business and cause noise and attention they don't want. And it's one of those things where it's one of those like those truths that they are true, even though when you say it out loud, everyone's like, that's outrageous, but it's true. Even when someone's barring a handful of things that can happen to you, even if you're mistreated, people don't like what's perceived to be a troublemaker, someone who rocks the apple cart, as it were. So I totally get that approach from Martial's people. I really, really do. I think it's key. There's a couple of questions here from Sharek relating to Man United. The first one is, are there preliminary talks with RB Leipzig? I'm sure that's over this HAIDARA news that was kind of trending in the last 24 hours or so.
Yeah, they do like him. There's no doubt about that. So do so many other clubs, though. So this isn't going to be something that kicks on quickly, I don't think. I think as soon as one club seems to make headway with HAIDARA, then you'll get others actively pursue him as well. So yeah, there is somebody that they're interested in, but we've seen United interested in so many players in that position and not progress any of them. So I wouldn't get too excited for now, but yeah, we're in very early stages. Yeah.
I mean, it's Man United's sort of transfer policy. It just seems weird to me. Like, start of the window, there's going to be talks with Julian Alvarez, and it seemed like, again, I saw credible journalists talk about talks are going to happen, and then suddenly it's no talks, nothing official. You had the Dennis Zakaria news. Again, some fairly credible journalists, both domestically and internationally, like preliminary talks or like contact between club and agent. And now the story is almost universal. No talks, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
It just sounds like Man United are shutting down a lot of these stories. To me, it feels like United are shutting them down. It's almost as if to say, so they can say, well, we weren't looking at anyone. We're waiting to the summer. But there's so much smoke, if that makes sense.
Well, it also depends. It depends what you consider to be talks, doesn't it? Because, the clubs reach out to loads of people, they speak to agents about loads of different people just to scope out their situations. And Alvarez, for example, like, out of those few that you mentioned, that's the one I know the most about. And he was offered to them, and he's desperate to come to the Premier League. And it's not just Man United that have had talks like that, though. It's 4 or 5 other clubs. So Man United are going to distance themselves because, like, they've had a discussion about him and he's been pushed in their direction, but they need to find out more about him. They need to know how he would fit. They need to have 100 different conversations before they would consider it that they were in the hunt to actually sign him. So I think it depends how the story's put out there. Like, journalists would have reported that as Man United in talks to sign Alvarez. And I mean, if you want to take it at very base level, then they were, but doesn't mean they were close to signing him. So
and mate, that's just funny. I spoke to an agent yesterday about the Mo Salah situation. A friend of mine I've known for years, and like, he's just, because he's not a journalist, he doesn't care about the story. So he'll just say, like, like, my client held he always uses his phrase is advanced and detailed talks. And I've asked him to explain that to me. And he's like, well, that's just where we go into intricate detail about my client, what they'd be willing to offer, where he'd fit in. So we go through all the nooks and crannies. But then he said that quite often after that, the club will then go and have that conversation with 7 other agents about 7 other players and then say no to me. And I think this is, for me, the bit that I want to see that the Sky Sports and the people do when it comes to these conversations around transfers, is that education piece for fans, and also teaching fans to accept that. Again, I look at Dennis Zakaria. I think we've had conversations personally from what I've read, but I also know Liverpool are looking at him. Well, I've read the same things, Liverpool looking. Man United and Liverpool are not going to go out publicly and say, we're trying to sign him. And then their biggest rivals land him instead. It's a PR disaster. And I think sometimes it's just a bit of relaxation is needed around it from people. The clubs talk to so many players on a regular basis. And I think people got kind of skewed with Liverpool because there was just always this, they only go after and they only sign their number 1 targets. If you think they only spoke to 1 centre-back, 1 midfielder, 1 striker for like 2 years, you're deluding yourself. Everybody kind of cast the net wide and far in relation to that. But there's another question here, interesting one. Says, anything on Lamptey to Man United?
I mean, he's so expensive at the moment. I don't see him leaving in this window. A couple of other clubs have had a look at him as well. It's a tough one. Tottenham were one of the ones, but I think they were told he'd be 40 to 50 million pound right now. I think he would be a good fit for Man United going forward. I think that is the sort of player that they should be looking at to fit their. Well, I don't know what their style of play is going to be because they change manager too often to know. But I don't know if Rangnick's going to be the man that is his manager. So that's the other thing to consider right now. That's United are going to have to bear in mind when talking to people. It's the big question. Okay, so what's happening next season? And at the moment, they can't really tell them. They're like, well, I don't know. Like, well, is Rangnick here? Is he consultant? Is he nothing? Are you bringing Pochettino in? Is it Brendan Rodgers? Like, difficult conversations to have. So United can't really progress too much, I think, with some of the longer term signings that in the past they might have been able to start making some headway with right now, because the future is so unclear. I really don't think this Rangnick appointment is, it's not disastrous. It's certainly not disaster, but it's not what they thought it would be. It hasn't mended as much of the breaks, if you like, that they'd hoped. And do you know what? There was a couple of people in high authority at Man United that feared this would be the case. There was a couple of people I was told early on that you'd think they'd listen to, were like, this guy's not the one. This isn't the right fit. The squad, not enough of the squad are going to be on board with this, and they're starting to be proven true, I think.
And I also think, look, I love Ralf Rangnick. Is in what he's done in the game, the way he speaks about it. But horses for courses is very important, and I'm starting to see signs of. And maybe it's because I've been doing what I do now for so long, and I've gone through 4-5 managerial changes at Man United, and I just remember the stories and the talk. There's us looking at Zakaria this month and HAIDARA and Ruben Neves. You then hear again credible reports of the club are not too sure whether they want to let Ralf sign anybody because it might not match the style of the next manager. And I'm sitting there thinking, can't people see that that's the story? People are focusing on who we're buying and not the real story in that statement, which is the next manager we go for could have a completely different philosophy to the guy that we're getting to come in and consult about how to run the club. If you can't see that that's the biggest problem, that you've literally got, you could literally have a director of football with a different outlook and approach to the manager, to the recruitment team again, which is one of the biggest reasons that United are in this mess, because we don't build a squad that can ever play one person's style of football because we don't have the right player profiles to fit it. But that isn't the focus. It's all this player, drop Ronaldo and we improve, or bring this manager in and we win the league. And I just think to myself, the level of basic understanding of what makes, forget football, anything successful, from your family unit right through to your education or your job, structure is key. You're a dad. I don't know if you have that. I don't know. I assume you're a good dad. I've seen the Instagram photos. You know what I've been regimented on with my kids since the day they were born? Routine. My children, even if I've been at a party, we get home, they have the ones that still have bottles. They have their bath, their bottle, their bedtime story, and get put into bed at practically the same time every single day, 7 days a week. And now that my certain kids are older, I reap the rewards of that because their routine is great. But it was that structure that had to be in place to make that work. The principle works across all levels of life. And that's what annoys me with Man United. And it rattles me up, is we just have no structure as a football club. And the fans just think, sign Zakaria and Lamptey and we're set, we're ready to go. It's like, bruv, it
doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that.
It's essentially, we are putting lipstick on a pig all the time, and it's just terrible.
Yeah, true. And they've got obviously more big adjustments to make. The whole Pogba situation's still lingering on. They've got to decide what they're doing there. I've got to imagine he's leaving at this point, but you never know what United decide to do from here. And then there's still going to be like, okay, so what now with Ronaldo? What now with Cavani? What now with whoever else, Phil Jones, like whoever it is, whatever level they're at in that squad, there's still uncertainty over, I don't know, what, 7 first-team players, the manager, his coaching staff.
Do you feel like, one of the questions someone put in here earlier was, what do you think Man United are doing about the next manager? Could you see a situation where Ralf isn't at the club at all come the start of next season?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I don't think that being a consultant is what he dreams of. I think he's come back into coaching after being kind of a consultant in other roles anyway. The kind of jobs he was in, they weren't doing what he's doing now. I'm not sure he really loved it. I think he wants to be part of the story, the day-to-day, you know, exciting part of being involved in a football club and coaching and improving teams and being in the headlines and getting the glory. I think that he wants that from what I understand. And going being a consultant for the next 2 years, I don't personally think is what he dreams of and what he wants. I think it's an option that's on the table just because it helps get him in short term, and it means that he's got a job once this doesn't work out. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was actually managing someone else by next season.
Yeah, I get those feelings, especially with, again, another nugget that came out yesterday about Martial, where it's, well, if we can't get rid of him, you've got to reintroduce him to your squad. Ralph's been very clear that he doesn't want to play people that haven't shown that dedication from day one. It almost feels different because he's not in a brand new 3-year deal, but it feels very reminiscent of Jose Martial, where it was a case of, no, we're not letting you sell him, get him back in your team. It's staggering. I love Anthony Martial, and personally, I'd love him. In an ideal world, I'd love to wave a magic wand and he's turn it around and him to get back to his best form and deliver for Man United. I'd love that. But I can't see it happening. So what I want and what I see happening are two different things. Therefore, he's got to be moved on. But I don't think we're ever going to be fixed. And, you know, we were linked with some really good players this window. And I'd love to see HAIDARA and Zakaria and Ruben Neves all come to Man United. But I still don't have any hope beyond that. You know, it's just until we fix our structure and things are running behind the scenes fairly smoothly, I think we're in big trouble. Liverpool. Mo Salah. 2 weeks running now. Big stories. One from The Athletic, one from Sam Wallace of The Telegraph about them not, you know, being a fair way away at the moment from getting his contract agreed. What's the latest you understand it there? And are Liverpool looking at any players to potentially supplement their squad or replace Mo Salah?
I think, like with Salah, they've got to start making progress with this deal before the end of the season. Because if Salah gets to a situation where it's the summer going into next season and he hasn't got the new contract he wants, I'm not sure if there's a way back from that. I'm not sure if Mo Salah is content with that. You don't see many players playing at the level he is, except that they're in the final year of their contract and their current employers aren't willing to meet what they feel they're worth. And what Mo Salah's asking for, even if it was 400 grand a week, he's got reason to believe that he's worth that. There's other players in the world that get paid that aren't in as good a form as him, aren't as important to a team as him. I think that Liverpool are going to have to push the boat out. They're going to have to find a way to meet his demands. No matter how you talk about the club and say, but that's not how we run as a business. We have to be more careful than that. You can take that stance if you want, but you also risk losing the grip that you've had on English football and losing Mo Salah, and then others start to leave and you're back to square one, because then Jurgen Klopp leaves and you're back in a Man United scenario where you're like, okay, what now? You go to Steven Gerrard, you try him as manager, he tries to sign some people, it doesn't work out, you get rid of him. You could go through this whole cycle all over again. It's taken Liverpool a long time to get to where they are. So no matter Salah's age, no matter whether you think like deep down, like this is great value, for the next 2 years, it probably is worth having Mo Salah there, because, you know, he's still got a lot to offer. And you see right now, while he's at AFCON, it's probably doing him a favour, to be honest, to be at AFCON and to see how this Liverpool team does without him and Mane, because it's not the same. I'm not saying they can't get by without him, but it's not the same. And it will take a lot to replace him. You know, Jared Bowen, Luis Diaz, they're the kind of players that they are looking at. Great, like potential wise, great. Like in 2 years, maybe they can have that kind of impact, maybe, but not next season. They can't. And you know, if you have next season without Mo Salah, and then you have doubts start to creep in about other squad members, then it's a slippery slope. It can be very dangerous.
It can be, and I think Mo Salah is the interesting one of all the front three. I think it's very. I don't see a world where all three of Salah, Mane, and Firmino are here next season. I think they do have to start looking to move. They need to refresh it, And look, Bowen, you mentioned him already. He's having a brilliant season. He's a very good talent. Mo Salah's exceptional, though, in the sense of he impacts and dominates most games that he plays in. But his goal contribution ratio to games, which I know some people... I keep seeing Benzema's quote around, you haven't just had a good game because you're scoring lots of goals. Yeah, but Mo Salah has very good games and he scores lots of goals. He doesn't fit into that category. He's scoring and creating goals at exactly the same rate 4 years running as Thierry Henry. If he keeps his level up for another, like, I think I worked it out at like 2.5, 3 seasons, he surpasses the goals and the assists that Henry did. Now, I'm not suggesting that he's overall as good a football player as Thierry Henry, but the point is, Henry was was the first to do it at that rate, and it's taken all these years later for someone else to do it. Liverpool are just not replacing that unless they're spending £200 million on one of the best creators, stroke goal scorers in the world. He's almost irreplaceable in that regard, and that's what I find staggering about this, is that you could literally get rid of him and go and get Rafinha and Jude Bowen, get both of them in, and Vlhahovic. I don't even know if all 3 of those players in your team win you as many games, win you as many points in a season as Mo Salah. There's no guarantee of it. And I know that no one's a guarantee, but I think where Liverpool fans are being shortchanged is when they got that new Nike deal, it was being spoken about of this will allow Mbappe level signings to come into this team. And they're not going to get that. And I'm not saying Bowen couldn't be a good player. A lot of Liverpool fans will say, look, when we bought Mo Salah, no one fancied him. Klopp can turn him into that next guy. But Klopp leaves in 2 years. Like, again, Jurgen Klopp is a factor in this. Jurgen Klopp is exceptional. How likely is it that they go to their next manager is as good or better than Klopp? It's those factors I think those factors need to be considered, by Liverpool fans when they're kind of sitting back and half accepting this. I find it's wrong. Mo Salah shows no signs of slowing down. I think they should be offering him, to a degree, what he wants. Move some other players on that slightly over the hill. It's a madness to me. Mo Salah is still going to be performing at this level, in my opinion, in his mid-30s. He just gives me that he's in great shape, he's fit, and he's got skill and technique, and that doesn't just leave you. Does that make sense? It doesn't just go because you get a little bit older. He isn't, no disrespect to Wayne Rooney. I love him. It ain't like Wayne Rooney that was walking around with love handles at 25 years old, where your body kind of starts to fail you when you're older. But we'll see what happens with it. In terms of the likes of Bowen and Rafinha, are these going to be January deals maybe, or will it be the summer they look at these moves?
Yeah, it'll be the summer. Yeah, Rafinha's not going anywhere right now. And Bowen's definitely not either. So both be for the summer. And yeah, if Salah did decide to leave, then you literally have to look for somebody who can win you as many games, transform games. And there aren't many people. You're looking again at HAALAND, basically. Like, yeah, you could sign HAALAND and be like, yeah, he could win us 10 games a season on his own. But you're then, got to pay the wages that they're not giving to Mo Salah right now. So you're in exactly the same situation. All the agent fees and everything, it's going to cost way more to do that deal. Yes, you've got him for potentially the long term. Probably not, because HAALAND will move clubs every few years. But that's the only way you could look to replace those goals. So, yeah, big headache for Liverpool coming up.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you on that. Listen, everybody that has tuned in today, a massive thank you to each and every single one of you. Do me a big favor and smash that like button before you leave, please. Make sure you get that done. I'm back at around 3 p.m. today. Lee Gunner's on for Straight Facts. We're talking RANGNCIK, we're talking Arsenal, we're talking about a certain individual YouTuber that I keep getting questioned about because he's been on the show. So that will be coming up on the Straight Facts podcast later on. I've got a few things to say about it as well, and I'm not best pleased, but I'll make sense when we go live. Dean, pleasure as always, my friend. Everyone who's tuned in, thank you. Take care. Goodbye. God bless.